We think you should know that Imperfect Heroes podcast is a production of Little Hearts Academy USA.
Welcome, heroes and heroines, to episode 109 of Imperfect Heroes, Insights into Parenting, the perfect podcast for imperfect parents looking to find joy in their experience of raising children in an imperfect world. And I'm your host, DJ Stutz. Get ready to be captivated by our extraordinary guest on Imperfect Heroes. Joining us today is the remarkable Lynne Bowman, a woman of many talents and a delightful sense of humor. From her creative director roles at Silicon Valley companies to collaborating with actress Deidre Hall on 2 fantastic books, Lynne has left her mark in the world of creativity. She has also recently published her own remarkable book, Brownies for Breakfast, which is filled with delightful recipes, stories, photos, and some valuable insights on just finding the best ingredients. I actually have this book and have used many of the recipes, and they are fantastic. I love them, and so do my grandkids when they come over. I can actually get them to eat their vegetables. It's pretty cool. So having conquered realms as diverse as acting, makeup artistry, screenwriting, and legal journalism, Lynne's creativity just knows no bounds. But she also understands the importance of social skills and knowing that proper table manners, carrying on a conversation, and dressing appropriately for the right occasion can make or break important matters in life. She's passionate about teaching these skills to children from a young age. Lynne's wit and wisdom have been shared at women's expos nationwide, captivating audiences with her expertise. So get ready for a conversation that will inspire, entertain, and enlighten as we talk with Lynne Bowman, an extraordinary imperfect hero. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for deciding to spend the next little bit with the Imperfect Heroes podcast. And before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that we are off and running with Rumble and with YouTube. So now you don't have to just listen to the podcast. You can see all our beautification and our craziness. And so if you go to YouTube, it's going to be Little Hearts Academy. If you go to Rumble, it is Imperfect Heroes. I'd love to see you there. And if you have comments or ideas or thoughts, we'd love to see that in the chat. And please click the follow and feel free to leave a rating and review. That always helps us to reach more families and broaden our horizons. So today, we are talking about a topic that really was so important to me and my family as we grew up. And there were 7 kids, 5 boys, so sports everywhere, very involved. We had a kids' youth thing every Thursday afternoon after school. So you can imagine my family was very busy, and yet we still found time. We ate dinner together. That was just how it worked. My beautiful guest here today is Lynne Bowman, and I have her book. I actually purchased it. It is an amazing book. It's called Brownies for Breakfast. Lynne, why don't you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, I should start by saying that the brownies are great for you. So don't worry. The subtitle of the book is A Cookbook for Diabetics and the People Who Love Them. But once I got rolling with the book, I realized that it's the way everybody needs to eat now. I would love to see everybody eating like a diabetic, because all that means is whole food, real food, plant-based, no junk, no crap, and no sugar. Because it turns out that diabetics aren't the only ones who are severely impacted, damaged by eating sugar. I just saw a statistic, and I don't know if it's the last year or 2 up to date, but it's fairly recent, and that is that 60% of the calories that kids are eating in the United States come from soda. So
Wow, that's interesting.
let that sink in. That's become kind of my mission, is to teach just the basics of, not every cell and every biomedical thing but here's the stuff we all need to be doing. And it's simple. It's not complicated. And it doesn't mean giving up the stuff you love to eat. It means discovering some great new stuff, as you already have, right?
Yeah. So I actually, when I got this, I was really excited and I started reading, and it's not just recipes.
No.
It's some great information about nutrition and whole foods and all of that. And so I thought, I'm going to try these brownies. There's no flour in it at all. You've got pumpkin and almond butter and eggs and all of these good things. And my husband was very, meh, this can't be good,
So
right?
what did I say in the book, though? What did I say? I said, don't tell them before.
Yeah.
Taste it.
Well, he shops with me, so he had to see all the stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, we always go together. So anyway, he gave it a try, and yeah, it's really good. It's lovely. And so I've got grandkids coming next week, and so we're making the cowgirl caviar, and we're going to make the granola together as well, and have some fun with the grandkids, and have something healthy for them to have while they're here. So it's going to be just a lot of fun. And then, in speaking about food and how to get that, Lynn and I were talking, gosh, it's been about a week or so ago, and we were just talking about how we don't sit down to dinner anymore. Or if we do, it's very unorganized and it's not conducive to those great and important conversations that need to take place, that took place as I was growing up and as I was raising my kids. We sat down to dinner together most of the time. Once in a while, of course, it doesn't work out, but most of the time we were together. And we were just kind of talking about what are the ramifications of us not sitting down as a family and eating together anymore.
And I like to shorten that, although I laugh because you and I were talking and talking and talking.
We did. We kept going.
I could do a lot more talking, but it's what is the real cost of fast food? I think we don't realize what we're giving up when we give up the table and sitting at the table. I mean, because I love the title, Imperfect Heroes. If there's one thing to learn when you become a parent, it's to give up the word perfect. Perfect doesn't have anything to do with anything after you have a baby in your arms. And the more you have, the more imperfect it gets.
True.
Wonderful, but not anybody's idea of perfect. But what you learn at the table in my book is the most important thing to send your kids away with. When that time comes, 16, 17, 18, and they're applying for colleges or deciding to go into this or whatever they're deciding to do you really want to send them away not knowing how to be at a table with other people, how to use
Right.
utensils, how to have a conversation with anyone, how to argue your point, how to present yourself, how to use what's on the table, how to share for the little ones, all that basic stuff. And yet we are sending kids into the service, into college, into jobs. I wouldn't have believed this, but it's true. Never having used utensils to eat.
Yeah, it's amazing.
They've grown up eating out of a bag, drinking soda. And the other thing, because our young ones now are even more conscious than we were or are in many cases of the environment and how we're leaving things. And so every time you eat a meal or a fragment, and I'm trying to think of you with your 7, imagine sending 7 kids off to have fast food and garbage that is produced from that, the plastic waste, the nonsense that comes
Right.
from that kind of an eating style. Nobody loved a fast meal more than me. And I know this probably you because you don't have time to waste on anything. But at the table is, I want to argue, maybe the most important time you spend with your kids. We also love that one-to-one time in the car when you just get to have side by side and you get to have that real conversation with maybe that one kid on the rare occasions when you've only got one kid in the car. So valuable. So yes, we have to be in the car with our kids, and that's not
Right.
wasted. It's okay. But I'm arguing that you need to find some kind of a balance of what's important and what's not. And now are doing their choir and language lessons and music lessons. And you have so many friends where it's all about baseball or all about football, kind of in the idea.
Basketball, track,
Right.
all of
But
them, cheerleading.
right. in the idea that there are going to be scholarships maybe at the other end of this and maybe a pro. And I want to submit that I think we need to be realistic about what the kids learn from these experiences. And I, for one, am not convinced that the baseball field is the ultimate education. I would argue that there's some stuff they're learning on the baseball field that I prefer.
Yeah. Well, and too, with all the boys, my brothers, they played Little League football. They played Little League basketball. I ran track. I was a cheerleader. And yet, even with all that, with 7 kids, we still ate at the table almost every
Value.
night.
Your parents valued that and they knew they were
Yeah.
bringing kids up well as a result.
Well,
Somehow
and I
the
think too, with
values.
7, it became too expensive really to go out. And my mom was a great cook, loved to cook. And so maybe that was all part of it too. But there was such a huge value in the conversations and in learning.
A lot of people ask me where my confidence came from,
Hmm.
which makes you kind of go, what do you mean what are you talking about? But to me, equipping a kid with that kind of information
Yeah,
goes a long way towards sending them into the world
yeah,
confident. They're not terrorized by an invitation to dinner at the house of the provost or whatever comes their way, a mess. It can be a wide range of things. And you can always fit into a simpler way of dining and life and so on, and that's okay. But
sure.
the vocabulary, your kids need to know, and a lot of it is just about respect, courtesy, which we were talking earlier. Maybe the world could use a little more of.
They can use a little bit of that.
Yeah, I'd vote for that. And courtesy from the tiny ones. I mean, I was just online with my grandson, 20 months old, this morning, and watching him have his breakfast and go through with his mom, my daughter, learning when you say please, you must say please, and you must say thank you. And the kids, you're not being neglectful or abusive when you insist at your table on respect.
Yeah. In fact, it's not, I always thought it was engaging when you would find, often it was families of color or from the South that knew to say, yes, ma'am, no, sir, and
Right.
speak in respect.
But it's true, I think, for everyone. It never hurts to be the person who is respectful. And we were talking earlier about dressing, because you have to teach your children how to present themselves to the world. And I
Mhm.
think often saying to young ones, because I've done some workshops and stuff with local kids, and what I've said to them is, you dress the way you want to be treated. And I found that often got a really puzzle. It's like, what? Yeah, you're dressing to let other people know
Mhm.
who you are and how you
Yeah.
want to be treated, which
Yeah.
also signals to people that you want to give and get respect.
Right. And two, I've been in a situation where I've been on hiring committees for the schools I worked at, or I was an administrator, and so I was hiring on different levels. And it was always amazing to me how you could really tell who was taking it seriously when they came in. They were dressed the part. You could tell that they were using manners. And then there's people like would just come in slouch. We were hiring for a teacher one time, and this guy came in shorts and like the cargo kind of short things.
And he
And
thought that was a good idea because
I don't know, but he didn't get the job, you know. And so and oftentimes because it's such a female dominated profession that when guys come in, they have a step up because we're always looking to have a few guys on the staff and whatever. But this guy, you could just tell, and he didn't sit up at all and he kind of slouched. And so when we're not teaching our kids how to be successful in a conversation, or if someone disagrees with me, I have to ban you. I can't talk to you because you disagree with me, when those are the most important people to talk to. I want to hear how you got to the conclusion that you got to. I'm not threatened at all by your disagreement. Most of my friends disagree with me, and I want it that way because I
and
want to be
what you
challenged.
learn at the table, at home.
Yes,
You learn
yes,
how to disagree in a civil and productive way. And I'm afraid that if you don't learn it at home, at the table, we will teach you. Where then do you learn that? And if you haven't learned it by the time you leave the nest, and let's just say 18, you're going to be in trouble because that's what goes wrong.
Yeah.
People who don't understand that you can hold different ideas, different beliefs, and still be loving and respectful and learn from each other and be productive together. And if that is not the main thing, what is? I mean, isn't that kind of the most important thing of all? It's more important than how you handle a wrench or how you paint paintings or how you program computers. If you don't have that most basic people skill, which you and I are agreeing, you learn that at the table with people. And yes, you learn it going out to restaurants too. You learn it watching the way your parents with people in restaurants, the people who help them, the waiters and so on.
Yeah.
Which is another thing, DJ, that I'm sure you've gone over many, many times with parents. It's not what you say, it's what you do. And never take their beady little eyeballs off of you, ever. So you can't ever let up being the example for what you want your kids to become. That's the hard part, isn't it? Is talk about imperfect. That's the most seeking of perfection that I would recommend to parents is just golly, be as wonderful as you could possibly be when the stuff is hitting the floor and the stuff is boiling over on the stove and the stuff and you're late. If you can demonstrate what you want your children to be able to do, that's your job right there. That's it.
Right. Well, and I think there's a trend too. I've noticed a lot of times that you have a little kid and they're done eating and they just get up and leave. And you're missing out on so much conversation opportunities. And so if your kid wants to go, that's a sign that you're not engaging them in the conversation and wanting to participate. And there's some little tricks that you can use. Like there was a author, gosh, probably 20 years ago, I heard him speak. Leo Biscaldi, and he talked about love and reaching out in love. He said one of the things that he learned from his parents, and they were immigrants from Italy, and his mom really struggled with learning the language and all of that, but they had a rule that when you came to the table at night, you had to share one new thing that you learned that day, something you didn't know before. He said there were times when moms got it on the table like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to tell dad because they were very Italian and dad was the one. And they'd be out looking at the encyclopedias, right? And okay, wait, look at, okay, the population of Nepal is, and so then they'd be at the table and Papa would come and say, Leo, what did you learn new today? And, oh, the population of Nepal is da da da. And he'd sit and think for a minute. He goes, imagine that many people in Nepal. But it had conversation and it would lead them. Or I've seen families that would say, give us one happy thing that happened today and one hard thing. Or tell me about someone who helped you today and someone you helped today.
And think about everything you're teaching doing that. It's not the fact of the matter. It's organizing the thoughts, presenting your being brief enough with your presentation, engaging people, all that stuff, which is what a career is made of, really. And happily, those kids would leave their family table having internalized all that. You would never have to remind them what that means. This is not as sweeping a thought, but at my table growing up, well, two things. One, my mother was an English major. She was a graduate student in English when she married my dad. And so she was brutal when it came to if you used a word incorrectly or made some other error with your language, you had to go and get the dictionary and bring it back and I kid you not. And read and spell. And so then we all learned from that. And of course it was kind of fun too. We would end up laughing about it. But we grew up with good language skills as a result. And I don't regret that for a minute. But the thing I didn't even appreciate, DJ, until much later in my life was the fact that my dad, in those days, in the 50s, dad was the head of the table, and he would have his briefcase and he had his place at the table. At our house, my dad was a marketing consultant. And so he would hold forth. I didn't realize that I was getting a graduate degree in business and marketing at my dining table. It didn't even occur to me that other people didn't know about ROI. They didn't know about industrial marketing techniques that really work.
Right.
I didn't even know I knew, but I did. And so I keenly appreciate, and that came in very handy for me, having been the sole source of income for my 3 little ones and having to make big girl money at some point, which happened to do. But I credit my dad to a great extent for that. My mom for making me a writer who spelled things correctly. And my dad for giving me this background in marketing and love for it. It was interesting and fun and a challenge. And he was passionate about it. So I became the same way. That was all learned at the dinner table before we even talk about food. I mean, but what I'm fond of saying is food is not just food. Food is love and sacrament and communication and all these things that you learn at the table when you're sharing your food. And sometimes you're talking about it, but sometimes you're just eating. But all of the ritual that comes with food, whether you're an Italian family or an African American family or a Native American family, and we in California are so rich in having all these cultures brought together. And a lot of the book is sort of fusion. In fact, the recipe that you mentioned, cowgirl caviar, came from one of the ladies who helped me test recipes, and she is from Hispanic family. And so I benefited from her thoughts and a couple of additions from her, including that one, because we are accustomed now to that. What is it now that there's a pejorative that it's called? It's borrowing from other cultures in a.
And that's one thing that I think too. Appropriation, that's it, cultural appropriation. And that it's a wonderful thing to appropriate things from another culture.
Thai food, Mexican food,
Absolutely.
all fabulous, yes. And we have gained so much by being able to have access to so many of these scenes and borrowing the best and taking the best of it in kitchens. Absolutely.
And two, there's so much our children can learn about faith at the table. We can have conversations about politics at the table with our kids.
Depends on who's at the table, though. Let's face it.
Well, if it's you're the parents and these are the kids,
Okay, but I'm talking about if you have Uncle Ernie over for some reason.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, then that's just fun to kind of make them crazy. But our big one was Uncle Verge. And
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but it was fun watching him. Like he had such I mean, I'm fairly conservative but he made me look like, a far lefty, and he's passed, God rest his soul. But he was just fun to watch. He'd get animated, and none of us felt he was the uncle that you kind of watched out because he's the kind that would grab you and be a little rough. Everyone has that uncle, and you love them. We loved him to death, and so he would be very animated, and we just kind of sit back and watch the show. It was my mom's brother. But I think too, as a teacher, I could see kids who were learning about politics even from their family, where I don't know if it was at the table or whatever, but you would hear them bring up comments about, oh, they hated this president or hated the police. They were afraid of the police, or just various social ideas that would come along. And they're 5 years old. They're not coming to these conclusions on their own. But these are things that they've heard at home. And so it's just really interesting that there's so much to pass on. There's so much to converse and include and to talk about and to share about experiences and have the kids share their experiences.
And a thing I am all about, as you know, health habits.
Yes, absolutely.
Why it matters what we eat. in so many ways. And these days, especially, I would think you would not be able to sit down with food and not somehow refer to, well, Uncle Verge is celiac, so no gluten for him.
Yes.
I love the idea that kids are so much more conscious now, and I want to encourage that about where food comes from. What is this food we're eating? It wasn't that long ago that it was definitely all food that was raised by Uncle Verge and Dad.
Yeah.
But now the situation is so different where we've been eating blind, literally, and we've been eating corporate.
Yeah.
And here's where I will sound political, but it's not. It's just the truth of the matter is that most of us are eating to make guys in New Jersey wealthy. We are not eating to make our bodies stronger and healthier. And so that is a revolution. I think I hear a lot of good, hopeful things coming from the youngest ones, my own grandkids and their friends, being conscious of food, because now you can't take on the health of the earth as an issue and global warming and all of that sort of thing, and not understand the role that raising food and buying plays. And then when you buy food, when you source food at a grocery store, it becomes very political very fast. Is this a monopoly? Who are you buying from? And why did you see this display in the front of the store and then want to grab it? My kids and I mean, obviously, this is a passion of mine, but my kids spent a lot of time. I mean, we shopped together a lot because I was a single mom and there was no one. We were in the store. And I am not afraid to say sometimes it was at the discount canned goods store at 10 o'clock at night. You've been there, ladies.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
So we talked about it a lot. And I did not know then what I know now about the food industry, big food. And I hope that all of you listening are talking about it with your kid at the table, like we've been saying, but in the car, wherever. It's essential that we take ownership of our food waste. We've just kind of given it away. Well, we'll grab this and we'll take some of that. And you also notice now, because I've suggested it, when you go to the grocery store, when you walk in, there's all kinds of grab and go food in the front door, right by the registers. That's where the money is. There's the bakery, the booze, and the grab and go. And that's all right. And they hope they're going to get you. You're going to run in, you're going to grab something from the bakery or the deli, and you're going to grab and go in plastic, and then you're out the door. And they've made an enormous amount of profit on those items. And of course, you also have created a lot of trash in those items. I just want to stick the plastic, but you have not any idea what you're eating. You don't know what's in.
Yeah. It's funny because if anyone's been listening long, you know that I've recently,
and we hope you have been.
And we hope you have. And if you haven't, stay with us. So I just recently moved. I'm a city girl. Los Angeles, Salt Lake, Las Vegas, Denver. And now I'm in this little town of about 255 people. And we're 20 miles from the nearest bigger town that actually has a Walmart. I had just yesterday, some of the ladies around said, "Oh, new lady, let's go to lunch." And so there were five of us. We all went to lunch together. And it was interesting because I was asking about farmers markets and all of that. And they said, it's too early. Things aren't in season. They're growing everything. They're growing the potatoes here and corn, and there's cattle and meat all around. And they were talking yesterday about how they're introducing things into the meat now, the mRNA into our meat and the antibiotics and all of these other things. And they said, why would you ever buy that from the store? I'm like, well, so who do I find out about buying meat that's here? Yeah, and not buying it from the store. And they were giving me names, and they'll butcher a cow and they'll post it on Facebook, and you can go and I'm like, holy moly. But it's interesting that even out here in Podunk, Idaho, that they are very aware of all of the treatments.
Though, it's like mine and yours, where I drive into town. It's about 4 miles. And I drive by the cattle that will be served up, and I almost can call them by name, but we can subscribe to the CSAs, the Community Service Agriculture, and love doing that, because then we're getting the food that was grown right here. And it's one. And we have a little farmer's market in town, but not all year round because it's weather. And a thing that you also learn when you really start paying close attention to what you're eating is that there is a huge value in eating in season. Fruits, for example, if you are eating local fruit, in season fruit, or at least fruit from nearby, you are eating a much higher quality fruit, totally different nutrition profile than a fruit that got shipped from Chile or some or California.
Mexico or whatever.
Right.
You're so right. You're so right. And I think with that then comes with having a garden if you can. And I was just watching a show. It was either HGTV or Magnolia, one of those. This lady, and she helps people who live in the city in small properties, or even maybe they just have a balcony to have a garden.
You can do so much.
Yeah.
Pots, absolutely, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Going back to children at the table, people have so often over the years asked me, well, how do you get kids to eat vegetables?
Let
Easy.
them grow.
It is. Kids will eat what kids grow, and kids will eat what kids cook. And guess what then? You've got kids who, as you sit around your dinner table at night, have helped you set the table, cook the food, grow the food, and by golly, nobody leaves until they've cleaned up. And then what you've done is you've raised a child who can go and spend a night at anybody's house, and they're the kid that the mom goes, oh, little Johnny is the most, he was so great and polite, and he did dishes, and so.
That's it. Well, Lynne, it's been so much fun talking to you. And I know, and it's just us, we don't have time constraints. We went for almost 2 hours the other day, just having fun. Yeah, it was great though. It was wonderful. I'd like for you to kind of let people know, how do they get a hold of you? How do they find out more about your book and the services and stuff that you provide?
Easy. It's lynnebowman.com. Just be sure to spell it. It's LYNNEBOWMAN.com. It's not the most glamorous website you've ever seen because we do it ourselves, but there are connections on there to go to the Instagram and the YouTube and all the other stuff that I have out there, and to buy the book. I am in the process of recording an Audible book. And for anybody who goes, wait, it's a cookbook and there's going to be an Audible cookbook. I know. But the idea is you can listen, and about half the book, or a third anyway, of the book is stories and conversation. You can listen to it, and I talk the recipes too, not all of the intricacies, but just a basic idea of what we're talking about. And then you have downloaded it for only $9.99. You can get an ebook, and you can get the paperback. The hardback is going to become very expensive, unfortunately, and it's out for a lot of people, myself included. But you can get an ebook that has all the recipes in it, and then you can put that thing up in your kitchen on your iPad or your phone or whatever, and you've got the recipes. But meanwhile, I've been in your ear as you drove along. So that's the whole idea. I'll have the book out very soon. I don't know when this show is coming out.
And I want to show too that, I mean, there are stories, and it's like, why is a swell idea to cook and eat this way, whether you're diabetic or not? I mean, there's commentary, there are stories. It's not just, there's some great recipes in here. I'm not going to put any of that down at all. I mean, smoothies and summer squash casserole and popcorn of the gods. I've got to try that one. But there's, like I said, there's so much more of how to approach food, and it's just fantastic. And so I love that.
Is in the book for things to watch and listen to, to get more information about, if you're more interested, and I hope you will. And there are big pictures of everything. And may I say, not a single food stylist was harmed in the making of this book. The photographs were taken by me on my stupid little iPhone because I wanted you to know that your stuff was going to turn out just like my stuff. And yes, I like to stick a flower on a thing, or, maybe cut it nice, but I don't think it's fair to put out a cookbook that nobody can actually make the thing that looks like that gorgeous thing that you made.
Yeah.
So real pictures of real food.
I love it. I love it. All right. So, Lynne, I always end with the same question. I ask all my guests, And that is, we know that there's no perfect parent, hence the title of our podcast. But how would you describe maybe a successful parent?
That's such a tricky question these days. I,
It is.
I'm fond of saying to people that I am delighted that it's not always been true, but right now, at least, all of my children are speaking to me voluntarily, happily speaking to me. And you parents know what I'm talking about, especially
Mhm.
when they're adult. Mine are all in their late 40s or mid to late 40s. So opinions have been expressed, let's say. The other thing is that I have no felons in the group, which and again, and I spent the day yesterday in the county seat of Redwood City at the Board of Supervisors meeting. And I don't mean to be glib about it, because when you face legal problems with your kids, and my first husband spent time behind bars, and which is another, we'll do that later, but I don't want to make light of other people's problems with the law. It can be horrible. But so far, that's a thing with my children I haven't had to deal with. And I'm grateful, because that and ill health are two things that just spin out of control really easily. So I'm wishing that for other people. And if you've had the difficulty, I hope you got some good help.
Agreed. Agreed. Lynne, thanks so much for spending this time with us. And so, for a reminder for everyone who's watching or listening, be sure to tell a friend about us and let's expand our family. You can always catch me on Facebook and Instagram. And on both of those sites, if you just find Little Hearts Academy or Imperfect Heroes, I've got pages for each of those. And so it's easy to get a hold of us and be part of the community and share your stories and your questions and all of that. We're just having such a good time. And I really appreciate you, Lynne, taking the time from, I know you're busy, and so sharing all of this great information.
I love that we're virtual grandmas. Don't you love that? We
I, oh,
everybody's grandma. I love it.
yes, yes. I don't know how my grandparents did it because we didn't live by them, but they were still very involved in our lives. But yeah, I'm so grateful for that technology. So
An honor. Thank you.
thank you. Talk to you later, guys. If you want to learn more about Lynne Bowman and Brownies for Breakfast, you can find all the information in the show notes below. And while you're there, hit that follow button to make sure you're getting in on the amazing episodes that we have each week. And if you did like what you heard in today's podcast, be sure to rate and review and then tell a friend. You can do this whether you listen on Apple, Spotify, or some other platform, or if you just listen from the Imperfect Heroes podcast website. On that webpage, which is imperfectheroespodcast.com, you just look at the top, click on reviews, and then you're going to click on leave a review, and it's that easy. And I would also like to invite you to have a conversation with me where you and I can discuss your family and the dreams and the hopes that you have. Let's talk about your amazing kids and the relationships within your family. Just click on the link below and choose a time for us to talk. And next week, guys, it's just me. Join me for a great episode on how our words tie our children in knots. Check it out and see. And so until next time, let's find joy in parenting.